All right, Travis Farral, CISO Archaea here in Dallas. Let's go. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man.
This is amazing. I'm so glad we were able to work this out. There was like this specific time period where I was a little sad because I thought this was not going to work out.
But, so was I.
But I'm super excited, and we were able to get together. And most importantly, you are like the most Texan person I know because you wore a hat last time. Dude, yep. Where's the hat?
The hat's hanging at home. I have multiple hats, actually. I don't just have one. I have multiple.
I need one, man.
Yeah, you do. You come here enough, like, you gotta have one.
Well, we've been shown so much love from Texas. You all definitely have been a little sad with what cybersecurity products you've been sold so far. So there's been a lot of love that we have gotten where it's like, hey, we really appreciate and love what you're doing. And for me, it's so much of the personal touch, man, because I believe that if you're going to work together, it's going to be a 10-year relationship, not a 1 year, 2 year.
100%. That should be the way it is every time going into a vendor relationship.
Correct. And honestly, that's like been one of the biggest learning experiences is that, I mean, you always think, everyone always says relationships, but honestly, like right now, I feel like I can just text you and be like, yo, Travis, what's up? Like, coming in, let's meet up, let's get a drink or whatever. And we're doing that today, right? We're going to have a happy hour, but there's more to it than that, right? It's like you get the chance to meet some of your peers and so on and so forth. You know that I'm not a murderer, although apparently in Texas, you said it yourself, I did not say this, but he said that someone inside might have a gun.
Absolutely. It's a possibility here, that's for sure.
There's two things, right? Hats and guns, for
Hats
sure.
And guns, boots.
Boots. By the way, how were the boots last time? Did you end up getting them? Really? They were good?
Yeah, I have like 6 pairs of boots at home. I just figure out which pair I'm going to throw on, and it depends on the situation, right? So
that's pretty cool, man. Yeah. But I mean, I know that you've probably said this in the past, but you actually came into cybersecurity at like the ground level in oil and gas, right?
Kind of, yeah. My cybersecurity career, if you really want to go back, like started when I was a teenager in the 80s and having a PC and a modem and all that fun stuff. Ooh. But it wasn't like any idea that this would ever be a job.
Got it.
You know, like I had very different career sites and didn't, you know,
like grow up.
Here, Texas is where I graduated high school. Yeah, in Keller High School, which is like kind of suburbs outside of Fort Worth.
Okay, nice. Because I love that you're actually from here. I'm obviously, you know this, I'm from the Bay, right? So 408 East Side, but like you kind of have all these friends and network and everything like that. So I'm sure you were the nerd in school, right?
I was totally the nerd in school, that's right.
So do you but what made you kind of continue, I guess, after university?
So I went to work for a what I thought was a Japanese company called Nokia back in the early 90s. And I wasn't working in tech at all, just kind of, working in QA and engineering and things. And found out A, that it was Affinia, it was Nokia, not
Nokia.
B, that, they had opportunities in the help desk. And, I got recommended for that because I was just quote unquote good with computers. So and then that led to obviously my penchant for thinking like an attacker led me to kind of engage in activities where I was protecting things and fixing things that I found were problems. And so I ended up on the security team there, and then the rest is history.
Because I mean, I think you really, of course, Nokia was like a big part of your career because that was the start, the inflection. But the inflection point also was at Exxon, right? Because that's where you actually grew into a completely bigger role and everything.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. It started at XCO Energy. I was brought in there.
But that was owned by Exxon, or how's?
Yeah. Well, at the time it was not owned by Exxon. I got hired by XCO Energy in Fort Worth. Really helped expand that program quite a bit. Really enjoyed the leadership and everything about working in that job. And then we got acquired by ExxonMobil, and that led to other opportunities, obviously, as we merged the teams together, and happened to come at a really good time because Exxon was also kind of expanding its security footprint, recognizing the need for investment in that.
This is in like late 90s or I think early 2000s.
This was, by this point it would have been around the early 2010s.
Got it. So like basically that was where, and also that was when the convergence, well, I wouldn't say early 2010s, but mid 2010s, convergence of IT and OT started to come about, right?
That is
security,
absolutely
IT
true.
security.
I mean, we were way in the throes of that, heavily at XTO, and certainly that continued on at ExxonMobil.
And where do you see that? Because I mean, for me, like I was working in OT security at Symantec when I was there, but
Right.
there was this, let's just say, hypothesis that there was going to be this responsibility slash just idea of ownership by the CISO for OT as well. Do you see that kind of coming to fruition?
I think so. I've talked to some peers at other security, at other energy companies,
Uh-huh.
and it does seem like the OT security is something that ends up falling under the CISO's purview.
Right.
In many cases now. I don't know how ubiquitous it is more broadly, but
it seems to be like, hey, because I mean, in your case, you actually do the security ownership, and it's kind of like delegation is on you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we take that very seriously, and obviously the company I'm at now has been acquired by BP, and so they already have a very mature approach to the way that they look at the ITOT
Really?
situation, and so we're simply just molding what we do to the way that they expect things to be there.
But like, what is it about that like, I mean, do they kind of like take the CISO kind of takes full ownership, or it's like, because there's different, I mean, in your case at Archaea, there's like lots of different plants and everything, right? And also those are typically, I mean, I always like to tell people that are not familiar with this, they're basically purpose-built systems, right?
Yes.
For that specific use case. In your case, it'll be, I think, for drilling, right? Or not just
it's for landfills. So getting natural gas off landfills, which is a little different than what I was used to at ExxonMobil, obviously.
Right.
But you're right. I see where you're going with that, and it is very much the thing about OT security, though, is it's almost 100% of the time, in my opinion, is going to be a partnership with operations, regardless of what the operations look like. If it's a manufacturing plant, if it's energy, whatever it is, the CISO can be responsible, or security in general can be responsible for the OT security, but they can't do it alone. They can't just go dictate things. It's very different than IT, where you might be able to have a little bit of a hammer to say, like
hey, do this, kind of thing.
It's you just can't take that approach in the OT world. So
I certainly can agree with that one. There was the product that we had built at Symantec. We used to call it ICSP Neural, which is it's kind of foreshadowing what we're going to call our CASB product, which is CASB Neural. But the idea was it's literally just a USB scanning station, right? You'd plug in your USB, it would clean it, and then you could only use the cleaned USBs. But it was kind of cool, right? You sold a Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, this thing, that thing. But ultimately, we had to make something that was very critical.
Yep.
Cool, easy to use, beautiful. And so it was like this beautiful hardware box. But I think about all these OT security companies that existed, Clarity, this thing, Indigi, that thing, and there's so many.
Yeah.
There were so many, and now like a lot of them been acquired.
That's right.
There's only a few standalone stuff
Indigi went
left.
to Tenable. Clarity's still
Indigi, yes, correct. I think that transition of, where can there be a major market? Because if it's too customized and it's too specific, like you really can't make money as a cybersecurity company.
Well, yeah, that, and I think when you talk about OT security specifically in any of these companies, like Indigi or Clarity or whatever, will tell you, like, it's hard to get people to open their checkbooks for that stuff, because a lot of times they'll lean on existing technologies like firewalls, like endpoint security products,
right?
And
because if I could put AV on all the HMIs, it's like, all right, that's great.
Yeah.
At least I have that there. And
that's
then
true.
Like, oh, but you also want me to do a network span port to this sort of collation thing.
That's right.
Tough.
Yep. It's a sell. And usually the win is that you sell to the operations guys, like, hey, look, you're going to get visibility out of this. Look at all this cool stuff that this platform can tell you.
But then who's going to manage it?
Yeah, exactly. And then you got to figure out, that's always a question too, is who owns it, who manages it, and usually it's some kind of, like weird delineation where, like the OT support team or whatever that looks like, owns the switch.
Right.
And then you own like the box coming off of it, and then maybe the firewall to the internet is owned by you, and the firewall between you and the
It's like too many owners.
Yeah.
Too many chefs in the kitchen.
100%.
I think like that was one of my biggest lessons, by the way, was around OT, because what I learned is that you should not build a product. I mean, this is for me personally. I shouldn't say this for everyone, but for me, like building something that's so niche where you're trying to pressure a CISO to buy something rather than building something that is mainstream, it's not a great business idea, because 100%. It's very difficult to be successful, especially in cybersecurity. Now, you can't say this for everything, right? Obviously, that's not a good pressure test, but for cyber, you pretty much have to have like a large set of relationships, and you have to be above the line on the purchasing cycle. Like it can't be like a nice to have, it has to be almost like this is like a must have, right? Otherwise you're climbing an uphill battle.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think sadly there's a lot of like good ideas out there in the security startup world that are not really, they're more nice to haves, and
they're like features rather than products.
Totally. There are so many features that, like, look, you'd be great if you were like part of my Palo Alto setup instead of.
Speaking of Palo Alto, we're going to pass it right now.
Yeah, that's right. They're right up here.
Yeah. But I think, by the way, it always feels good when I see this, because Palo Alto is near and dear to my home. Although Palo Alto was actually made in Palo Alto, it's not based there at all.
No, not at all. It's Tel Aviv, right?
Plus Santa Clara. But my buddy Sandeep works at Palo Alto, so I always make fun of him, because our product, when you put our product against his product, it's like they get 150 megabits per second and we get 350 megabits per second. So I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
But it's still a great engineer and still a great company.
Sure.
They make great firewalls, right?
Yep.
And I find that about all companies, right? Like anyone has been an inspiration that comes before. Again, this is more coming from a product management, a founder perspective. Is that like you have to respect the people that were there before you, right? Especially someone like a Palo Alto, especially people like.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, especially as a startup, like they may be the company acquiring you, so you definitely don't want to
piss them off.
Come out of the gates throwing them under the bus.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to throwing people under the bus, I just usually talk about the products I used to work on, and there are similarities, right? Like, I mean, there's the dope.security whole mantra is like fly direct.
Yeah.
It's like fly direct. There's no stopover. You don't reroute your internet traffic to a data center, but that's the way everyone works.
Yep.
So it's like a step change. Yeah, now.
Yeah.
But then like 10 years from now, when you and I are talking, and I'm now 22 years old, not 12. No, just kidding.
No, that's accurate. That's accurate.
What's going to happen? Like, are you still going to be using Zscaler? Are you still going to be using Netscope, right?
See, that is such a important thing to acknowledge, I think. That's another thing that I think startups get stuck on, is even if they do find that good product market fit where they have something that it's a need to have, they have their blip of success,
right?
And then they don't adapt with the times, because times are always changing. If you're not adapting and staying ahead of like where things are headed technology-wise, you're going to get left behind, and then you're having to lay people off, and we've all seen how that story goes.
But that I think is actually two things that you mentioned that were really interesting. It's like, one, you have to be able to adapt and be nimble and agile, and I think that's about listening. Right. So like, for example, one of our engineers, Luis, he talked to me on Friday. He's like, we got to make a change here on the CASB product we're coming out with, so that we can, be efficient and make sure the timelines are all set forward. But like, we have those calls, and I'm open to it, he's open to it, and then that's made a change in how we're doing things, right? Right. And the same thing goes for you as well. Like, we have to make a pact right here, right now, that you're always going to text me whenever you think we should change things.
100%.
You have to,
it's great having that. That's the value of the relationship.
Exactly. But then the second part of what you mentioned is also really important, is like, you shouldn't be trying to grow at all costs. And that's tough.
Yeah, that's tough to start, because all the pressure, especially on the CEO, is return on investment. You just got this round of funding, and we're asking questions. Where's the results? What's the timelines? And so I think that's really hard to have that kind of patience. I think second time in past like founders who've been through the gauntlet of that before,
they a little
and
bit
had
less
a successful exit, like
right.
they know how the game is played and they seem to be more patient. But I think it's the first time founders that really struggle. Like,
thanks,
like
man.
that.
You know, that's why I know you're throwing me under the bus right now.
No, but you acknowledge it. So this is already like separating you from like other.
I'm trying to be more along the lines of in a learning aspect, because when it comes to product, like that is my like, I would say my forte, right?
Sure.
Yes.
Knowing your background, yeah, 100%.
Like that, design, user experience. I mean, that's why we call it dope in the first place. But you have to be able to like know how do you build a product. But then the second part is how do you learn from a really good salesperson? How do you learn from a really good CISO? Yeah, like you know, it's like, what can you tell me? Like, well, Kunal, this would be better if you did this. Like, I think the greatest example is like having conversations, but I don't believe in like paying for everything. For example, I just find it really tough to pay event companies tons and tons of money to put on these relationships and everything like that. I'd rather have my customers do 3 or 4 referrals, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I think that right there should be the model for all startups.
Because if you try to like force it, like I was on the phone with, you know, this guy who was asking me some questions, and he's like, oh, like, should I just go in and like pay this person like $15,000 for this event? I'm like, dude, that's like a lot of money, right?
A lot of money.
And like there may be other options, and I get they may not be as effective. You have to do something, right?
Yeah.
But like just because you have 3-4 million seed money in the bank doesn't mean that you should just drop this money everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. Like how many of those 15,000s can you spend before you're out of money, and how many customers do you have to get out of those 15,000s to make it worthwhile in the end? And like, what's the lifetime value of your customers?
Correct.
What's the, you know, that's going to drive up your customer. Like if you spend $15,000, you end up with one paying customer out of that. That's pretty significant, you know, customer acquisition cost. Now, granted, it goes much higher than that in our industry and security.
Yeah. Well, the best part of all of this is that we're both hypocrites here, because we both literally met at a dinner.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Paid for and everything.
Yeah,
but although, I mean, let's be, I just I guess taking that into account, given the fact that we're both hypocrites. And
we are, 100%. Owning that.
But
you know, no, let's challenge that a little bit though. Like, the example you gave is like $15,000, and you know we all know like you pay that $15,000, the results could be zero. You
That's
could
fair,
end up with zero. Maybe you get 5 paying customers. Who knows? But that's how the game is played, because the reality is CISOs get absolutely hammered by every, and there's thousands of security startups.
Like how many like people reach out to you a day? Like realistically, like 5 to 10.
It's more than that. It's more
really?
Because I get phone calls, I get texts sometimes, I get emails, voicemails on multiple different phones. So
but
like
you respond to me all the time, so I must feel.
Well, it's different. It's different. Yeah.
I'm gonna make some people jealous right now.
But there's companies that are of interest, you know, where the relationship is valuable.
Right.
You know, this is something that scratches an itch, or it's heading in a good way that I'm very interested in or want to help shape or whatever. But you know, but that actually touches on one of the points I was going to make, is that we need those relationships.
That's
fair. Like we need the vendor relationships. I don't need 6,000 of them though.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, like, not every single security company thinks that, like, obviously I need their product, and the reality is I don't. You know, I need a very few products. I just need the right ones.
That's so true.
That is. And so it's tough. How do you bridge that chasm, right? So you have the CISO who's completely insulated behind, you know, like I can't answer all these emails, I can't answer all these phone calls, and you who have this product that you're like, look, I know some people are going to want this. It's going to hit something. How do I get them to notice that I'm here,
or that I exist even?
Yeah, that you exist. And so your options are pay the $15,000, you know, pay $1 gazillion and go to RSA and hope that some guy that stopped by your booth notices you. You know, yeah. It's like the options are not great.
It's a tough thing, by the way. Like, I mean, because what do you do?
The cheapest route though is, hey, you know, like, do you want to go to lunch? Do you want to go to dinner? You know, we have this event? It depends. Well, see, for me, I get a lot, but I look at like who, if I've heard of them and I already know, like I just, you know, I already know about you. If I was interested in your product, I would be reaching out to you, right?
Right.
And if it's a company that like yours, I was like, who is this? And when I looked at your website and everything, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to hear the pitch. And that's why I wanted to go, because I say no to most.
Okay, got it. So like you are relatively selective.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Because I feel like there's some people that literally just go to dinners.
I couldn't do it. Yeah, I got stuff to do. I can't go to.
You're like, I have kids, I have wife.
And honestly, I don't like giving up that time in the evenings unless it's something that I think is going to be worthwhile.
You're making me feel so special right now. Not only did we make your call, but you answer my text messages. So what's the key to cracking like the CISO relationship thing? Because I mean, it's not just for me, by the way. This is because people that usually end up seeing these clips, they're either folks in your department in the world of security engineering that are practitioners, or they're folks that like are trying to build a product or trying to found a company, whatever it is. So what do you think they should do?
Yeah, that's a tough call, and this is something I spent a lot of time thinking about because it's a pretty significant problem. I get really irritated sometimes with some of the the SDRs that are just
you do things here too. You have the CISO XC thing and everything like that.
I do, and I appreciate that. That's honestly like the CISO XC model, I think, is that's why I love being an advisor, being part of that community, is because that I think is how you bring things together. You set up events, especially where it's driven by CISOs, and you selectively choose which event partners you want to bring
like the ones that you think are worth
exactly.
Like. Which, by the way, we still have to work that thing out with XC when you guys have your event.
It's coming up in April.
We got to do it.
So 100%. And I think that is the way to go. It's because you got to make it easy on the CISOs, but you got to make it easy on the companies too. And it can't be, hey, we need 6 figures money from you to have access to this thing. It's got to be like
it's reasonable.
Yeah.
But I think like being overly selective on both sides, it builds like this ability to do something. Right.
Well, my favorite event every month that I do try to prioritize and go to, one, because it's kind of early and I can do it and still be home for dinner, is we have a CISO XC as a happy hour.
Oh yeah.
And it's a very, it's not totally pay to play. It's like, yes, vendors will split the bill and cover, the drinks for the evening and stuff. But it's also open to vendors. Like, like you can just show up. You don't have to like pay to be to come hang out. And so it's a very like, like the pressure's off. You can just have natural conversations with people. You can connect if you feel like there's that's very interesting. What you're telling me, me as the CISO, I can say,
you go every time.
Let's talk. I try to. I don't always make it, but I do. That is one event I do try to prioritize.
I mean, I think that like you all have a very beautiful community here, but what makes Dallas actually different? Is it things like this, or?
It's starting with a strong CISO community.
Yeah, so you know most of the CISOs here.
Yeah, and it's all because, honestly, Cecil Pineda, he's...
Cecil, our main man. By the way, I got connected him with a friend of mine, Shirk, who's also, he was one of my favorite account reps that taught me so much. He was like, yo, talk to Cecil. And I was like, all right, fair enough.
Cecil is the man. Well, he just is so outgoing and did a lot to connect with other CISOs in the area and built this, him and Randy and Jamin, like, built up the CISO XC thing. And because it was driven by CISOs, like, other CISOs were happy to join in.
Yeah.
Because it's friendly
not like an
environment.
event company,
it's not a vendor, I need to have my guard up environment.
Yeah. It's more like, it's organic, right?
Yeah.
It's all, that's like something that we say a lot, right? If you have any of our t-shirts, in fact, at the back, there's like wearing instructions, like how should you be when you act? It's like, be authentic, be passionate, be dope, right? I mean, you have to have that inside of you. Otherwise, you're just kind of faking it.
100%. Do
you think that like most people that want to be in your position, because I think we kind of gloss over this fact, but you are actually a lot of inspiration for people.
I do understand that. It's not something that...
Because, I mean, really, you did start at the help desk.
I did honestly start at the help desk. Granted, that wasn't a very long time ago. That was, 30 years ago?
Right.
But I do recognize, I do see it as a responsibility as somebody that has the CISO title, that people covet this title, covet this position, and I feel like to do my job as somebody who's in that role and to give to the community, I should be absolutely spending time with people who are trying to come up in their careers. If they want to take the time to reach out to me and talk and honestly listen, and I can listen to them and hear like where they're at in their career and what it is they're going after,
like help them and everything.
And,
you make time for that. Like, are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Nice.
So like you're like pretty approachable on LinkedIn and everything like that.
Yeah, I do have to be careful. Like I can end up losing all my time that way.
That's tough. I get.
So
I
have to like measure it a little bit, but I absolutely spend plenty of time every month talking to folks trying to come up in their career.
I mean, it's tough mainly because sometimes you'll have like really good people that are trying to get you help, but then there's also people that like don't come prepared and don't ask the questions.
Yep.
I mean, I think that like coming prepared with like, yo, I really, really appreciate your time. I just wanted to ask you a few things, and they're very particular. And then you 5 or 10 to 15 minutes of your time, then it makes a difference, right? But if they just kind of like come unprepared, then that's when it feels like it's.
That is absolutely true, and some are like that. And I still, I still take those calls or have those meetings with them, but I do give them the kind of advice like here's things you want to really like keep in mind and where you want to head and things. And usually, like the message is received, they get it, and they're like, okay, I got some things I need to go take care of. But yeah, other people, they come, they're like, a lot of times they've already answered all the questions. I'm like, what do you want from me? Like,
exactly. It's like,
doing all
got all
good for you, man.
Well, you gotta tell me, man. Like, what made you love dope so much? Because I mean, I don't know. I just really feel, we connected after the first time.
Well, one of the things that I value more now than like earlier on in my career, I used to be all about like features and functionality. Like it either does what I want it to or it doesn't. And I've started to realize like the features and functionality is important, but it's like almost secondary to the team, the approach, the vision of the company. And you tricked me into coming to the event because I saw the website. It was very well done, by the way.
Thank you. Erica, Ashley, like they crushed it. Amar, like they get so into how do we make this look beautiful. And there's a revision coming to the website, by the way, where it's like story driven, which I think you're gonna love.
That's gonna be interesting. All right, now I gotta wait for that to come out. But so you lure me in, and when I saw the pitch, it's like, honestly, to me, it's like an on-off switch.
Okay.
I'm here. Let me see you, see how you interact with people, because that's interesting to me as well. Who the rest of your team is, how do you select the people that are around you, and then the pitch itself, like what is the problem you're trying to solve? And further, like in the meeting we had, you actually kind of cast the vision a little bit of where the company's going and why you're going that way and why you took the approach that you did. And that all resonated with me. And I thought, you know what, this is a healthy startup right now anyway, point in time.
Right.
And I kind of want to see where things go. And, so here I am.
That's so interesting, man. I loved it. Well, first off, thank you so much for doing this. Secondly, thank you so much for always giving your warm text and welcome. It makes me feel super happy to be here. But thirdly,
that's what we do.
What can you tell people? Like, because again, people do want to be in your position.
Sure.
There are people out there that want to be you, really.
Yeah.
Like, what should they do?
Well, there's a lot, especially nowadays. Like the role of CISO is changing, and it's changing in ways that's making it a more challenging position to be in, especially if you're in a publicly traded company because of SEC rules and things like that. You have to be prepared in so many different aspects. Like you need to understand security. I am a huge fan of CISOs that are technical. They came up through the technical ranks, that understand the challenges on a very fundamental level, because I think it helps their thinking and how they solve the problems that
like if you can appreciate what the person who's going to be managing or using or having to deal with this every single day,
100%.
Then you can make the proper decision at the top as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It really helps inform you and on how to navigate the ongoing challenges and new problems and things that come up in security all the time.
We call it anti-exec, right? Like, don't be an exec. Like, really think about the use cases and think about, how's this person going to have to deal with this?
That's right. The other things are, you have to be able to speak, unfortunately, you got to be able to speak finance. That means being able to understand, like, like to have a coherent discussion with the CFO about, fundamental things that are important to the business.
Right.
So I always, one of the common things of advice I give to people that are at least to the point where they're like in some level of management or something in security and they're trying to get to the next level, I'm like, okay, have you taken any finance courses? A lot of times the answer is no. Sometimes it's, I'm enrolled in an MBA.
Like some P&L stuff, or?
Yeah, that's kind of basic, but just, like even like, especially if you're headed towards wanting to get into a publicly traded company.
Yeah, then you should know this
understanding all the financial statements and things like cash flow and other things. I mean, you should know those things anyway, because even if you're at a private company, it's maybe private equity held or it's,
right. How does it work?
Like understanding the business challenges of your business and being able to speak that language is so huge and beneficial when you get to the point where you're speaking and interacting with the CEO and the CFO and the rest of the leadership team.
Speaking the same language.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. And then obviously, like, it kind of goes without saying, is just being able to lead people, to motivate them, to challenge them, and because you're gonna have a team, you're gonna have people answering to you. You got to be able to do these things. It should go without saying, but some people come unprepared for that.
Well, I love it, man. Be super technical, be financially aware, and finally be an amazing leader and lead by example.
100%.
You're the man. Thank you so much. I'll see you again soon. Great seeing you. Take care.
Always
see you again soon. Yeah, great hanging out with you too.